Welcome, runners, music enthusiasts, and everybody in between to the What's in Your Earbuds podcast. I'm one of your co hosts, Jason, and I'm being joined by Joe Harden. We're here to discuss music and endurance sports, from playlists for hard efforts to long runs. This is your place to share your love of music and running, swimming, or cycling. Today, we're going to be joined by Angela Hollowell, who is the founder of Honey and Hustle, as well as Melanin MVP, which you can find right here on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. We're going to be celebrating Black Music Month by trying to not argue about the best song, band, artist from the past 60-ish years. We decided to go back only to 1960. In other words, we wanted to make you stay alive with us instead of falling asleep halfway through the conversation, because it would have gone on for forever. Joe, what's up, man? How are you doing today?
What's up? Yeah, I'm doing good. Excited to talk some new tunes.
No kidding. I can't wait to bring Angela on. So let me ask you this. Like, as you were doing research for your favorite songs or bands or whatever it was, like, how often did you find yourself going, oh, wait a minute, what about this one?
Yeah, that was kind of like my theme of today. Like, I would listen to a song that someone like submitted, and then that would like remind me of like a different song. So it's been like it was a pretty lengthy and like awesome rabbit hole that I went down to get ready for this episode.
Dude, such a rabbit hole. And I don't know how old you are, but I know for a fact that I'm older than Angela. So when I went back to the 1960s, it brought me right back to my parents' house parties on Friday nights and just listening to this music as a teenager, because that's what they were listening to. Was unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's not wait any longer. Let's bring Angela on the show and let's get ready to arm wrestle about best songs from the 60s through today for Black Music Month. Angela, what's up?
Hey,
Hello.
how's it going?
It's going good. I'm a little nervous about the arguments and the fighting over who's better, who's best, who's okay, who's not so okay.
Yeah.
So I referenced going back to the 1960s and just thinking about all the music that my parents were playing at house parties that, they were having in my house, and like just this massive rabbit hole that I went down just listening to all these songs that are 60 years old and all these artists, some of them that are still with us today and some of them that have passed on. So we're just going to jump right into the fire. 1960s, do you have one or maybe two either songs, artists, or bands that just jump out to you?
Yes, and I want to preface this by saying I'm going to try to mention as many with NPR Tiny Desk because I just feel like that's one of the greatest introductions to artists right now. It's just stripped, it's pure, it's raw. So the first one, and again, I wasn't born in the 60s, but I also listened to these people from my parents. Like my dad had this huge vinyl collection. And so it was like the the most pure listening experience you can get. But he was a big Isley Brothers fan. I
Yes.
really got into the Isley Brothers a lot, and they have an NPR Tiny Desk that everybody should check out because they still got it, man. They're so good.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend them. I'll start off with them while I keep thinking, but the Isley Brothers come to mind. Al Green, I think he was maybe 60s, 70s cusp.
Yep.
Marvin Gaye, a lot of those people
Yes.
that were like in that era, that's what we grew up on for sure. And the Supremes, I'm naming like 5 people. I said I was going to stop, but
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
Baby Love by the Supremes. Come
yeah,
on now.
classic,
Yeah.
classic song.
Classic.
Yeah. So those are some of mine. Some of them have Tiny Desk. Obviously, some of them are no longer with us, so they don't. But you can get them on vinyl some kind of way from somebody who's selling their vinyl, like my dad did. Like, it's beautiful, beautiful time.
Joe, you got anybody from the 60s that you can drop on?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Marvin Gaye because like what's going on? Like who doesn't love that song? And this took me down a rabbit hole, Muddy Waters and like Little Walter and like Howling Wolf because he's I mean they kind of span multiple generations because just like what an iconic voice, and I can't think of anybody else that sounds like Howling Wolf or just like what he puts behind when he sings. You can just tell he's like putting his whole self into each song that he does. Um, but yeah, Marvin Gaye, and same thing. I remember kind of being a kid with my grandparents listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire and like Slam the Family Stone on vinyl. So that kind of, to like Jason's point, that kind of takes me back to like that and like those little 45s that they had, and I just always kind of loved that time of my life, and those little songs kind of like hit with like a certain day, like a kind of associated with like a memory as a kid. So
I'm a little upset with both of you since
I could talk about
you
the
didn't put any respect on Aretha's name.
Aretha.
Yo,
Yeah.
we were waiting for you. It's cool.
Oh, wait for the old guy to bring up Aretha Franklin from the 60s. Like as soon as, because at first I was like, was that in the 60s or was it late 50s? I wanted to be accurate. And when it showed up as in the 60s, I was like, I mean, this has to be the top song from the 60s. And don't get me wrong, Isley Brothers, The Supremes, Can't Help Myself by the Four Tops, Wilson Pickett. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But for me, Respect by Aretha is it
Oh
has
man.
Yeah.
it's decades. I mean, to this day, you could still listen to it and still feel absolutely moved by it without a doubt.
Yeah, timeless song. I mean, like to your point.
So timeless. And you guys keep mentioning Marvin Gaye, but I kind of cheated and I slid him right into the 1970s because his song "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" with Diana Ross was released in 1970, even though he wrote it and produced it on his own in '69. But with Diana Ross, it came out in
Okay.
1970. And have you guys ever seen Remember the Titans, the movie?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't
Right,
insult me.
Beautiful.
Come on.
right. Like honestly, as soon as that song comes on when they're singing it in the locker room, like I get up off the couch, like everything has to stop because I am singing it at the top of my lungs as well.
Well, that's how it should be. Like, I love use of like music like that in movies. Like, it just like is that great equalizer that brings people together no matter who you are. It's like we can all love this great thing, you know?
100%. So Sly and the Family Stone we mentioned, and he just recently passed away last week. So R.I.P. to Sly there on that. Any other songs from the 70s that just pull you up?
So last year's Black Music Month, NPR somehow got Shaka Khan on the Tiny Desk. So I'm gonna put her in the
Whoa.
70s. I'm gonna put her for my 70s artist.
Okay.
That's a good one too. My
Yeah.
goodness, she's not even on my list. I feel inadequate now.
Yeah, that's
No respect. No respect.
It's funny as we got closer to today's date, I was like, I don't know who to pick from the 2010s or the 2020s now, but like 60s and 70s, I was like, oh, and this just proves my age, right? And living with my parents and having the music playing all the time because I put Gladys Knight, Midnight Train to Georgia from the
Mm,
70s on there. Again, just another song that was always playing in our house that my parents loved.
yeah.
Um, Joe, do you have anything from the 70s?
oh well. So Jimi Hendrix spanned the '60s and '70s, but I can't remember if Purple Rain was might have been in the late '60s, but I would have to go with Purple Rain. And I always think about Charlie Pride too. Like his body of work was like '50s, '60s, and '70s, and just like absolute gold. I wish I could like hone in on one song on Charlie Pride because like all of it was so good. Same with Jimi Hendrix. Like I couldn't tell you like my favorite Hendrix song. Other than this, they're all fantastic.
You're talking about splitting hairs when you're talking about trying to find a favorite Jimi
Yeah,
Hendrix song or Bonnie.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
tough. Yeah,
You
it's
know what's
tough.
interesting? Like I'm listening to our conversation here and playing it in my head, and I'm like, you can tell the type of genre of music that people most listen to from our conversation, right? Like, Jimi Hendrix was not on my list. It was probably never going to be on my list. Um, but Motown is on my list because again, that's what I grew up with, listening to my parents playing Motown and listening to all of those bands back then as a kid in the 80s and 90s. It's just amazing. The And here's the thing, right? We're at the tip of the iceberg in this conversation. There are
Yeah.
so many bands. I was hoping Angela would pull out like bands and artists that I'd never even heard of before, so that I could go Google and then go down a super rabbit hole.
I'm trying to keep it mainstream here. Mainstream, like people will recognize. Because sometimes, like, I don't know, it's nice to just have a little callback. At least that's what I've noticed in like my listening patterns lately. Like, I've been going back to some Alabama blues albums that were like 2 to 3 to 5 years old, and just like binging those albums like they just came out yesterday. And like sometimes you just need like a reintroduction to the familiar. So trying to stay where people would like kind of recognize the names, but be like, I haven't listened to them in a while. Let me just go back through their discography and make it my own personality for a week, you know?
There
So
you go. I think that's a thing
Yeah,
we need to also reintroduce. So, Joe, you were born and raised in Indiana, correct?
yeah, mostly Indiana, East Coast and Indiana.
Yeah. And Angela, Alabama.
yeah, the South. So I was born in Georgia, raised in Alabama, now in North Carolina.
And I was born and
Nice.
raised in New York, and now I live in LA. And it just tells you because when one song gets mentioned, the other two people's face lights up, and it just tells you that it is absolutely not just geographical in how impactful this music and these artists are. Because the smiles are awesome. Like the moment you mention something, like I have Michael Jackson on here with "Rock with You."
Mm.
And this is
Ooh,
before Thriller and everything else, Billie Jean and stuff came out, and like I just blasted that this afternoon while I was, and I was like, man, like this song is so good.
Uh,
We're gonna move into the '80s now, a little bit closer to today's
ooh,
music, and I'm sure this will start to spark a whole bunch of arm wrestling. And I'm gonna go first because Joe mentioned Purple Rain, so I mean Prince. End of the conversation. Like I don't
yeah.
care who you guys bring up, I'm winning the '80s.
I was actually also gonna say Prince because and Prince is also the first vinyl that I ever got. It's the only vinyl my dad ever gave to me because he died while I was living in Birmingham. So I have the Prince album where he's sitting butt naked on a horse. And well, obviously he didn't do a tiny desk. One of my favorite tiny desk is actually an artist that worked with him directly and wore some boots that he gave them on their show, which was Lettucey. So if you're into tiny desk, Lettucey, and this is also showing like my millennial YouTuber like obsession. So back before there was like NPR Tiny Desk concerts, there used to be this thing where NPR would like have artists perform at really weird places around town. So before Lettucey did an NPR Tiny Desk, she did like a show for NPR that was just like on a random balcony in the French Quarter, and you could hear
Oh,
like as
cool.
she was singing and performing, people on the street would like jump in and like sing with her and be like all into it. So it was really cool to see that. And so she was heavily inspired by Prince and worked with him in the studio. And so yeah, so that's my 80s plus modern day inspiration. So
Joe, who you gonna
Yeah,
tab for the '80s? Are you just gonna jump in the bandwagon with us, and we're all gonna start
I,
singing "When Doves Cry"?
I, I, I don't. I hate to go. I'm gonna have to agree with you because I mean, when doves cry, I mean, I
Little
mean,
Red Corvette. Come on.
Little Red Corvette, like, and then that's and like the Purple Rain movie came out. Like, how
Yep.
great is that movie? I can't think of really a better artist in that time. Really, um, I was just thinking like how like I still think about his Super Bowl performance. Like, I don't think there was a better Super Bowl performance, but
Us Giant fans
um,
would argue with you because Whitney Houston sang the year that they won the Super Bowl. So us Giant fans
okay,
might argue with you about that.
that's funny. Can I give some honorable mentions?
Absolutely.
So my honorable mention is Two Live Crew and
oh
Run
yeah,
DMC.
Run
Uh,
Yes.
DMC.
so
Oh,
it was just an interesting time for hip hop
yeah.
and self exploration of black music. And yeah, I feel like it birthed a lot of the sounds that we are probably going to get into in the 90s and the early 2010s. So yeah.
So in the
I,
'80s, I was in 1980. I was 7 years old. So from 7 to 17 is the 1980s for me. And my absolute favorite song is "It Takes Two" by Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. And that's because it was like right around the time I was getting into high school. And that song will forever, ever get me up dancing like forever. And it's about that how we're rolling into the '90s concept because that song if you heard it, there's no way you don't move to it. And maybe a year or two ago, Lori and I heard it being used on a commercial.
Mm.
It was
Wow.
crazy. I was like, my ears perked up from the other room, like radar, like what is going on around here? I was like, who's playing that music? And it turns out it was used in a commercial. I don't remember the brand that the commercial was for, but it was used in a commercial. And I'm going to drop some other honorable mentions on here while we're at it. So Let's Groove by Earth, Wind, and Fire came out in the 80s. Smooth Operator by Sade came out
Oh,
in the 80s. Yeah.
oh, come on.
What a song. Now I'm gonna have that in my
Yo,
head. I'm gonna have that in my head for the
yo,
next 6 months.
dude. Oh my God. I remember one time, it was like the first time I was driving. My dad had these CDs in his car, and my mom's like, "What does your dad have? Let's put on some music." And I pick it up, and I didn't know her name was pronounced this way. I said, "We have Sade," and she's like, "No, no, 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 no. Other people are Sadie. This is Sade." And she
Yep.
put that down. So I learned real quick who that was.
Like that song can make you smile and cry at the same time. Like it's
So good.
amazing how good that song is.
Yeah.
Uh,
I,
I
I have
have,
to.
I had,
I'll go ahead,
go
Jason. I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was
I
just
was gonna
gonna
say
give
I
Angela.
want to dance with somebody by Whitney Houston.
Oh
Oh,
Cool
yeah.
It Now by New Edition. What's
Okay.
Love Got to Do with It by Tina Turner. Soul to Soul by Back to Life. Like, yeah,
That's a good time, man. That was a
That's a
good time.
good time. And I'm gonna be the old man shaking his fist at the clouds. You kids today, you don't know what music is. Like, go put on some Sade and go put on some old Whitney and
Yeah.
go put on some Tina Turner and Soul to Soul. And I'm telling you, your life will be changed.
Yeah.
All the
Absolutely.
songs that they're sampling now were from the 80s.
Yeah. And they're very expensive for good reason to sample. So worth a lot, trust me.
Yeah, Joe, you got to drop your 80s knowledge now.
Well, I wanted to double back and give like Run DMC. Their like collab with Aerosmith, Walk This
Yep.
Way, was like that's how I found out about hip hop. So
Yep.
that's like kind of what got the next 30 years of my music like rolling. Like that started it for me. Like that music video was so awesome. So I guess I
Yeah.
just wanted to give you a shout out for like an awesome honorable mention. Like that's a huge honorable mention actually.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So I just wanted
You
to say
guys
that.
do know where hip hop got started, right?
Oh, here come the New Yorker. Here he comes, bro. He's like, just to let you guys know.
If it wasn't for the Bronx, the boogie down, that's where it all happened. That's where it all started.
Oh,
Grandmaster Flash. That's it. None of this
yeah,
conversation would even be happening.
yeah. Somewhere there's somebody writing a movie script with another DJ scratch. Skirt, skirt. I bet you're wondering how I got here. Shout out to the Bronx.
Shout out to the Bronx. I mean, Run DMC is over in Queens, so the whole New York City, and then Brooklyn, you got the Beastie Boys, which I know is not part of Black Music Month, but New York
They were
City,
they
we
were
got it all.
inspired by black music,
Yeah,
so
100% they were.
yeah.
And Alicia Keys, I didn't know this, was actually raised in a part of Manhattan that I lived in for a couple of years. And it blew my mind because it's like this tiny little area in northern Manhattan
Wow.
just before you get to the Bronx. And to know that
Mm,
Alicia Keys was born and raised there just totally blew my mind.
mm,
Which is
yeah.
a person that we can start to lean into a little bit as we get closer to the 2000s. So the 1990s, Angela will let you take this one first.
All right, you already know I got to give it to my girl Janet Jackson. That was just like a great time for her, I think, as a performer and as an artist. So I really love seeing her or like hearing her come into her show. And that was also around the time I got my first Michael Jackson CD, late 90s. So that was my first introduction to having physical media as a kid. Those two albums were what my parents got me, along with Backstreet Boys, which obviously isn't a part of this conversation, and some other '90s artists, but Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson for sure were part of my '90s CD collection. So
Joe, before you go, we have a caller on the line because we do the show live.
okay,
Lori's chiming in on Instagram, and she's like, "The West Coast would like a word."
Of
She's
course they
like, "What
would.
about NWA, Dre, Easy?"
That's all
Um,
90s, babes. That's all 90s. You gotta wait your turn. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Interestingly enough, we went to the African American Museum in DC, and they have a music wing dedicated there. And oddly enough, like almost all of the West Coast rap is left out of that section of the music section of the museum. It was strange, like
No
not
respect.
seeing
No respect. The South
none.
and East Coast, we have an ego about our music. It's you can't you gotta give them a little grace. They're not. We have an ego. It's fine.
Joe, who are you bringing in from the '90s into this argument and this conversation?
So the '90s would have been when I first discovered Wu-Tang Clan, and my life has never been the same since. So,
I mean, obviously, yeah.
I mean, they're like rapping about like kung fu and stuff, and like that was just that captured me for some reason as a young lad in the '90s.
We have, I mean, there's so many, and there's so many that are going to be left out. But TLC,
Yeah.
Waterfalls and
TLC.
No Scrubs, Warren G.
Yo. Mm-hmm.
Regulate, Hold On by In Vogue. We'll go back to New York City. LL Cool J, Eat 'Em Up L. Mama Said Knock You Out.
Yeah.
On and On by Erica Badu.
Yeah.
Brandy, The Boy Is Mine. Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many, and that's like what I can get in 5 seconds. The
Yeah.
list goes on and on and on. It's amazing how
Okay.
many songs there are and artists. And again, there are people that are more than likely like underground, like we'll never hear of them, but they play in local clubs and in local events that are probably just as good and just as amazing. And it's unfortunate that we don't get to hear them. Lori's chiming in again with Salt and Pepper, which is another great addition. We would have. Go ahead,
Okay.
Angela.
So I was about to say we completely forgot about Salt and Pepper in the 80s. And then we would be remiss not to talk about the great Juvenile who created the anthem of all times for the 99 and the 2000s. That had a beautiful jazz rendition on in his NPR Tiny Desk. We have to say it. We had to
have,
say that before we head into the 2000s.
have you seen his Tiny Desk, Angela?
It's so good.
It's.
I
I
was
was like,
not
damn, this is.
expecting.
Yeah, okay. I was like, this is phenomenal. I love Tiny Desk too. So I was like, as soon as I had a buddy send that to me, he was like, wow, like it was really, really, really good.
Yeah. And
We
then
have to.
Manny Fresh, like the producer that we're leaving out a lot of producers who made a lot of the sounds and like work with a lot of these artists, but like yeah, Manny Fresh was a good callback to have him on, and that's rare that you see the producer on Tiny Desk, so that was cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't make mention of Quincy Jones at all.
But he's that guy.
He
He's
is
that
that
guy.
guy. Like, there's the running joke of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I would bet that there is the 6 degrees of Quincy Jones when it comes to music. There
Oh,
maybe even less than 6 degrees for the most part.
3 degrees, two and a
Yeah.
half.
Like that guy is a part of everything that has happened from Motown in the 60s, 70s to today, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It's amazing. All right, so we're gonna now tiptoe into the 2000s, and Joe, I'll let you lead off the
Oh my
2000s.
goodness. Well, I have to say I don't know how I never said Bob Marley for the '60s,
Mm.
but so that's my bad because that's like one of my favorite artists of all time. So sorry about that. So 2000s, I'm gonna go. I'm sorry, I keep sticking with East Coast here. Sorry, Lori. Um, like Jay Z, like he took the music scene by storm in the 2000s. So yeah, that first album of his was just so good. That's something that's like I still listen to now, and like it just aged so well. It's just so good. It just hits different now that I'm older, but it's
Did
just
you
so
see
good.
his did you see his special that he had on CBS with, I think Gail King was the host, when they go back to Brooklyn and they show like where he grew up, and they
Oh
they
no,
they basically walk you through his life. It's phenomenal.
Okay.
I'll have to check
So
that out.
I was gonna piggyback off JC because I actually got to go see the Brooklyn Public Library installation.
Yep.
to like the amount of work, like a true body of work that you have to be able to like fill up a library the size of the Brooklyn, and like the different installations they did were incredible. Obviously, this man has no need to do a tiny desk, but there was by adjacent. I was actually going to say Brandy's for the early 2000s, and then I was going to put Destiny's Child in the early 2000s because for me that's when they were on my radar. And there isn't a tiny desk for them, but the Terrell Show on YouTube did an incredible like Destiny's Child kind of feature for the end of season 6, and he had like Michelle, he had Kelly Rowland, he had Lativia, I think, Latoya Luckett. Like he had all everybody but Beyonce basically on the show.
Was she busy elevating the economy of the entire globe?
You know, just holding the entire internet on her shoulders or something. So yeah, if you want to check them out, I think that was a great introduction to their stories as well that often get kind of like caught behind Beyonce somehow or like behind Destiny's Child. It was good to see them have their own kind of like shine. So yeah, that was definitely early 2000s music. I could go on because that was, my heyday. That was me being a kid. That's when I had an iPod, an MP3 player, like, messing around with friends and see what they're listening to. So I'll let you guys go for the
The the Brooklyn Public Library installation is exactly what they were talking about with Jay-Z in this little like 60-minute, 90-minute documentary was when they had that
cool.
installation of at the Brooklyn Public Library, and it was phenomenal to see.
Yeah.
So I have Umbrella by Rihanna and Jay-Z on my list, and I
Okay.
also have, which it's right up there with It Takes Two, depending on my mood, is Empire State of Mind with Alicia Keys and Jay-Z,
Yeah.
which clearly we have ventured into New York land, and Lori is saying that we need more Best Coast instead of West Coast representation on this podcast. But Beast Coast, that's it.
That's so funny.
But John Legend, Ordinary People, come on now.
That was a good time.
Yes.
Good time for the lovers right there.
We'll go south. Outcast, hey ya, come on. Yeah.
Come on, Atlanta. Come on, Atlanta. The South got something to say. Come
Yeah.
on.
I think the South kind of does get lost. At least it did in the 90s, and when the conversation was East Coast versus West Coast rap, and the South kind of got lost. But I wouldn't call it a resurgence, but maybe more recognition of South rap and hip hop in the last 10, 15, 20 years probably. And it's so good. My goodness, it is so good.
Yeah.
I have Usher on my list. I have Genuine on my list from from the 2000s.
It's like good representation of like South hip hop would be like 3 6 Mafia. I guess you never really think about. That's a core part of that like South hip hop movement too, like with Juvenile and so yeah, that was a big part of I guess my 2000s too.
You know who's missing in this conversation? We got Lori jumping in all over the place. Is where's Derek? Derek is normally our fact checker. He would have all the lists right now.
That's funny.
Yeah, he'd be on it.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the 2010s, and this is kind of where I start to get lost because the only one that kept coming to mind was Pharrell Williams, and for me it all started and stopped with him. But Angela, we'll go down to you and let you pile into the 2010s.
So I think the 2010s was like a really good time for Southern rap. I feel like, especially like Atlanta trap music was kind of leading the way. So like your T.I. had an incredible run. Wiz Khalifa was kind of like getting onto the scene. So there's your West Coast. There you go. I got you. For me, especially living in Alabama, I gotta shout out the Alabama Shakes. I gotta shout out St. Paul and the Broken Bones. Well, St. Paul, they're not black, but he sounds like Otis Redding, so we're gonna give him like a half point, right? So we give him like a half.
Was it Rick Astley? Right? Remember when Rick Astley first came out? There wasn't a single person I was like, that guy's definitely black, right? And then this redheaded dude shows up on the screen. You're like,
what happened here? But yeah, Alabama Shakes, I gotta give them some shine there. I don't know if this counts. I don't know. Maybe we missed him, but like Lil Boosie, that was also a good time for him before he, went to jail. Um, so-
I left a number of people that have gone to prison off my list.
okay, well then we won't talk about him. But yeah, that was a good time to be black and in the South. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that I'm missing, but I definitely remember having just like a very there's like people probably won't recognize it. I wouldn't even say they're the best, but there are people that I was listening to heavy, like the Little Scrappies. I was way too young to be listening to this, but Trina, she's a southern rap artist. One of the few, because when we talk about even like women in rap, it was all like New York
Yeah.
basically, and LA. There weren't really a lot of black women from the South that were making it big in rapping. And Trina, she's still around today. I don't think she's really producing any, but she hops on some songs. She'll feature occasionally. So I really got into Trina at that time, which probably tells you everything about me that you need to know. Um, so those are some of my 2010s.
Joe, who you got?
I'm, I feel like 2010s. I was really big into Kanye because like he was just on fire at that point, and I don't know how I did. I don't know how I didn't bring up De La Soul in any of this conversation today
Yep.
because that's 2000s. Like I basically had their second album on repeat there for a while. Um, so I would say like Kanye was really hitting a stride in 2010s.
You know how many people have blocked and muted us by now because we didn't mention Mary J. Blige
Mary
once?
J. Blige, yeah,
Yeah, that was a good time. That was a
or
good time. I
Biggie,
should have been
or
listening
Biggie
to that
Smalls.
either, but I was.
I- Um, so the other on Sunday, well, speaking of people we didn't mention, Missy Elliott, I put Missy Elliott on, and with the way these algorithms work today, so plug the phone into the car, we're driving home, and one song after another went from Missy Elliott to Mary J. Blige. To just a whole bunch of female rap artists and hip hop artists at the time, and it was just like one banger after another.
Yeah,
Just wish I would have recorded it because it would have covered the whole conversation right then and
yeah.
there. It was amazing.
Okay. There are two people that I left out before you jump in, Jason, because I don't want to get canceled. Okay, we can't get canceled in the live stream. So we gotta shout out Lil Wayne. We know we
Yes.
gotta shout out Lil Wayne, and we gotta shout out Sierra because everybody thought she was gonna be way huger than what she is, but we enjoyed her while we got her. Okay, so
Yeah.
I just want to shout out those two people.
I mean, there's so many. I know Lori mentioned NWA and Easy and Dre. Then you got Snoop in there, and you got Flavor Flav in there. I mean, we could get canceled by any number of different people at this point because
Yeah.
we could. The list is way too big for like basically a 30-minute show. Um, there's no way we'd get it all in. Go ahead, Joe.
It's like if me like shouting at Kanye probably didn't get us canceled too. So
Yeah,
2010 was a way different year for Kanye.
Trust
for
me.
all of us.
Yes. I've left off R. Kelly and Diddy from this conversation as well, right?
Yeah, we
Can't
gotta
have
leave them
not
out.
talking about those two guys at all. But there's just the number of people like that we could go on and on and on. Cardi B, Slick Rick, KRS-One, like the list people's ears would start to fall asleep from the conversation we could possibly have.
Yeah.
Let's roll into the 2020s. We're already 5 minutes over our normal allotted time because I could do this all day. 2020s. Who do you got? Joe, Angela?
Oh,
Sounds like Joe wants to go first.
I was thinking, I mean, his career was unfortunately very short, but my son got me into Juice World, and not like obviously like Kendrick Lamar was like
Yeah.
as like just yeah, what a career he's building. So I'm gonna go with those two. Yeah.
Okay.
Angela?
So I know there's somebody that's like, why not Drake and J. Cole? And yes, those people. But when I think about like what I'm listening to now and what I would recommend and what I go crazy for, Leon Thomas, while he's had an incredible run this last year, 18 months, he's been producing and writing for people for like years. So I want to put Leon Thomas on people's radar. Ari Lennox, someone mentioned Diana Ross a little bit earlier.
Yep.
Ari Lennox, very heavily influenced by Diana Ross. Both of those people have Tiny Desk, by the way, so check them out. Um, Duran Bernard, he's like incredible, amazing. He's been on the scene for a while. I really love him right now. Another Durand, and this is maybe someone like 2010s, 2020s, but I saw them in Birmingham for the first time. Duran Jones and the Indications.
Hmm.
That is moving right there.
Yeah, so
When you fall silent, that's how you know it's good.
yeah, so those would be my kind of like, and I could go on. There's a lot of women rappers. Like it was like this explosion. Like I had the Nicki Minaj poster in my college dorm
Yes.
room, and she was kind of one of the main artists out at the time. And then it's like Cardi B and Flo Milli from Alabama and Lizzo and
Yes.
Oh
you
yeah.
Lizzo.
know all these incredible women that have popped up since Glorilla, Memphis rap on the map.
Mhm.
So a lot of great 2010s that I think are happening right now. So I'm just excited to see this new wave. And then there's some people that probably people don't know as well. Like there's an Atlanta artist. His name is LA, and it's spelled ELHAE. uh, I've been a huge fangirl for a long time, but I know he's just gone through life changes and hasn't been as consistent with releasing, but very distinct style coming out of Atlanta. Um, and just to go international, so nobody counsels us for not being inclusive. Um, to our people across the pond, there's a woman named Nao who had me in a chokehold for a while. NAO, just a very distinctive style, like coming out of London, because it was like Nao, Georgia Smith, Ellie Goulding. She's not
Yeah.
black, but they're all kind of in that similar style that I really like too, from like an alternate R&B kind of style, but that translates really well to like a live show and a live band. Um, so yeah, lots. I could go on because that's like my jam right now,
I
but
mean, and
I'll
here's
leave
the
it at
thing,
that.
right? Like you can't turn on the radio today without hearing songs by Teddy Swims or The Weeknd at this point. I
Oh, the
mean, Drake
weekend.
is yeah,
How did I
Drake
forget
is
that?
I, I mean, I, because there's so many of them, dude.
Yeah,
Because there's so many good songs that are out there that it's so easy to miss um, artists. They're like I can't get the name in my head correct, and I want to pronounce it Dozier, but I know that's not how you pronounce it. Female artist that is probably top 10 Billboard song.
Doja Cat,
No, that's not who it is. You mentioned her the other day, Angela.
Dochi,
What's that?
Dochi. Is it Dochi?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
right. Like
Oh,
yeah, exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Like you can't hear that song and not just be into it right out of the gate. Like it pulls you in immediately. And there's just so many songs that you can listen to. It's one of my favorite things about either Apple or Spotify is you put it on there and all of a sudden like it just starts connecting you to these other songs that aren't just the songs that everybody's listening to, and you really go down a rabbit hole of artists and music and beats. um, I know it's Black Music Month that we're talking about, but I don't know if Joe remembers this when we first started putting on the What's in Your Earbuds and talking more about songs. Like, I was like, I need to go listen to more Latin music. And then all of a sudden, like, all of these songs on Spotify came running through. And so now, based on this conversation, I'll go into the car, I'll drop on Spotify one of these artists that we're talking about, and I'm sure there'll be a flood of artists coming through.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. I love just like letting Spotify do its thing for like just a day where I just don't even touch my phone. I'll just leave it plugged in somewhere and just like let Spotify just like take me down that rabbit hole. That's probably one of my favorite things.
If
Mhm.
we,
Always at
if
least
you,
learn about new artists that way too.
All right, so we're gonna start to close out the show. Angela, you have to introduce one artist into the Royal Rumble of Black music. Who are you putting into this Royal Rumble? Who is going to come out on top? And you only get one, and you're going to piss off a lot of people.
You know what? I'm gonna say Diana Ross
Oh,
Oh
so
yeah.
good.
because of her influence on women artists and expression of sexuality and poise. And yeah, I'm gonna say Diana Ross.
That's a
What
good
a
one.
what a voice, like a commanding voice too when she sings.
Yeah. All right, Joe, who are you throwing into the Royal Rumble ring?
I always want to gravitate towards Marvin Gaye. Just
So,
I just yeah I don't know if I've ever heard a bad song from him. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with Marvin Gaye.
I'm gonna throw into the ring. I originally was gonna go with Aretha, and then Angela mentioned Diana Ross, and I quickly pivoted to Whitney Houston. And
Oh yeah,
but here's the thing, right? Like we can make an argument that Whitney was influenced by Diana, who was influenced by Aretha. So
Yeah,
our 3 degrees of Quincy Jones and or is now 3 degrees of Aretha Franklin. We just nailed it on that one.
yeah, yeah. Rita's, yeah, yeah.
So I'm putting Whitney into this Royal Rumble for the audience. If you could only pick one black artist to join in on this Royal Rumble, put it in the comments. We'll share them. Angela, thank you so much for joining us on this What's in Your Earbuds to help us celebrate Black Music Month. I don't know that anybody could argue that if it wasn't for Black artists and their influence on music in general, that we would have music in general.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let people know where they can get your newsletters and all of the great content that you are putting out.
Yeah, we have some incredible articles and podcast episodes and even YouTube videos. We've got some short films coming your way. And you can find all of that when you subscribe to our newsletter at www.melaninmvp.com. Next month is our 1 year anniversary. So we have some really fun
congrats.
things dropping that Jason has already been privy to. So we're excited for it all.
Awesome. Angela, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you soon. All right, dude. This was a fun
Cool.
show. We're gonna have to pick this back up and bring other people onto the show to talk more about their favorite artists in this manner because
Yeah.
we could fill days worth of podcast episodes with this.
Yeah, I like that. That was what was the artist that Angela suggested right at the end? I was,
And
um,
we'll have to go back and listen to it and pull it up.
yeah, that was
I
so
was
good.
this like there's not enough ink in my pen to write down all the artists that we were dropping names on here.
Yeah,
So
I
dude,
learned about a lot of new artists in this episode, so this was awesome.
it was awesome. So, dude, thanks for being a part of this. Really appreciate it. We'll be back in 2 weeks on the 30th. We'll have a special guest. We'll go run down the 6 questions that we've been asking people to name with Martians and walk up songs and all of that good stuff. So, thanks for joining us, everybody. Check out What's in Your Earbuds on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. And please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're using Spotify, comment so we can continue to bring great guests like Angela onto the show. And you can continue to discover great songs for your next running playlist. Have a great one. We'll see you soon.